Let's take a look at using computers in small businesses. Our guests here are going to be one or both of the IT people at Independence Bank. And while that's a relatively big business by Haver standards, by SBA standards, it would definitely be considered a small business. They usually kind of have the break at about 500 employees, and I think Independence Bank is still less than 100 employees, even through the various branches that they have. So, um, and they've just got such a variety of IT needs that be kind of an interesting group to have come in. So, I'll let you guys. I think I post these, but you could always hit pause and read the things. Explain the importance of information. Yeah, that's a huge question. The data that they collect. I'm interested to see how far they've come in that category. Are they really gathering a lot of data and starting to use that for marketing processes? I don't know. Um, how do you choose your systems? And again, I think when we talk about the bank, you're going to be talking about kind of a legacy system. That's probably not the term they use for it, probably mainframe. That handles just the normal stuff, keeping track of people's accounts, their loan balances, those types of things. But also then the workers, the employees, also have to have access to PC types of things, Word, Excel, etc., etc. And I can tell you that way back when I was in banking, we those two just weren't compatible at all. I'm really interested in finding out how compatible those systems have become, if at all. So, or if they're still just two separate things. But I describe the growing role of technology. Yeah, we could be there for a month just listening to him describe that and how much that's changed through the years. Explain how the PC, has affected small business. I go back in time shortly after I started in the banking world. I know this will kind of date me a little bit, but we bought a dual floppy IBM computer, which was a PC, one of the first PCs. Dual floppy, that means that it had two little floppy disks, was all the memory that it had. Each disk held 512 kilobytes of information, so the entire computer had just over 1 megabyte of memory. Okay, we paid $5,000 for that computer. you know, you guys have more computing power by thousandfold in the smartphones that you carry around. So man, has it changed? So, and be interested to know. We talk about the PC there, but what about some of these other technologies, tablets, phones, those types of things, and how they're integrated into their use? Potential problems, yeah. Again, they could probably talk for a month Sundays about security and those types of things that we'll get through. So, um, role of information, I got to skip through some things probably a little bit quickly. Different kinds of software, what all different types do they use? Perfectly good question. And the differing roles of those between the mainframe and the maybe their PC stuff. I'm going to skip through some of the stuff. You guys can take a look at those if you want to. Yeah, the management information system. That's probably the entirety of it, and how they get it to work. How do their computers and Haver connect with and communicate with the computers in Scobie, for example. Um, yeah. To what extent, I guess, do they use their computers for these things, right? Okay, to control, to meet obligations, to satisfy government regulations. I'll bet you that's a big one for banking. To evaluate performance of the bank itself, maybe employees individually. Yeah, that this one to evaluate performance is fairly broad, and it might be worth exploring that a little bit because I imagine that they use it a lot um, on a daily basis. We did, I know, 20 years ago, even when I was in banking. We used it daily to evaluate the performance of the bank and had pretty good reporting to do that. So I wouldn't doubt that they still probably even more robust ways of doing that. Yeah, this might be of interest to me for sure, and be a good question to ask. When I left banking, we were still doing a lot of batch processing, meaning that you would take your check in to deposit it, and it really wouldn't show up until the next day, okay, because we didn't do real-time processing. It would kind of get into the system, but it wasn't until that night that everything reconciled. You know, to run through the mainframe and it all reconciled would show up the next day. I think that they are now doing real-time processing. At least that's been kind of my um, findings. You know, when I look at my own accounts and whatnot, I don't do that very often. So, but I think that they're probably doing that real time, and that'd be kind of interesting. So, um, yeah. Again, we're going to kind of go through this. What kind of hardware do you have? And again, how does that differ? You know, do you have mainframe and PCs, or you know, how are those integrated? And good questions to ask. And then the various softwares that they use, and they probably have a list that's this is taller than, you know, the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. So, I don't know that they would talk a lot about the technology S-curve backward compatibility. I think a good general question about the compatibility when they're buying new products is key, and also the compatibility, again, I keep bringing that up, between the mainframes and the other types of computers that they use, the PCs. There is the technology S-curve, you know, that we look at, disruptions that come in. Question, when I talk about the mainframe, and I might be incorrect. We had a mainframe and did all of ours in house before. The bank may have gone to, in the meantime, they may outsource that function. Okay, they may outsource that to a independent or a different company that actually provides those computing services for, again, some of those. Keeping track of the accounts, loan balances, those types of things. I don't know. I can't remember what they were in last year, I think, and I asked them that, or somebody asked them that, and I don't remember. So that's a good question to ask them. Are they still using a mainframe, or are they outsourcing that? And if they're outsourcing it, to whom are they outsourcing it? This must be a little older PowerPoint. Personal data assistants, yeah, those have been completely replaced by smartphones, but they might have actually been kind of a precursor to smartphones. They were small devices, and they looked just like a smartphone, and people kept their schedules and those types of things, but couldn't make phone calls and really didn't connect to Wi-Fi, and so that's obviously changed, and now we got, smartphones. So maybe there's people that still use these. I don't know. Maybe there's some reason to use those that wouldn't be connected to the Wi-Fi, etc. So RFID, we're not going to be able to talk about that with these guys, because this is more of a retail type of thing, and the bank obviously wouldn't have things that would have RFID. I don't know that that's become a big deal yet. It certainly will be, I think, at some point in time, maybe, where products that you buy, and maybe these are the things that they put on. That could well be, that would beep if you go through the store and you didn't pay for something, or they didn't do it. That could well be RFID things. I'm not sure. These guys might know. So yeah, so where's the computer most useful? I think, how much more productive has the computer made maybe the average bank employee? When I went in the bank just the other day to deposit a check, and there were, I think, 3 tellers working. Okay, the bank's substantially bigger than when I worked there, and even when I left the bank, we probably had no less than, say, 5 tellers working, unless we had some real sickness or something going on. And so, each teller's able to handle many more transactions than what they could, and kind of interesting, how that's happening. Some of that may be just because a lot of the commerce is more electronic now. In those days, people wrote checks and they used cash, and so you had to have tellers that could count all that. Nowadays, what do we use? Debit cards. So you use your debit card at the hardware store, and it automatically then gets deposited to the hardware store's account. They don't need to run a check or the cash over to the bank, right? And the teller doesn't need to account that. So that's kind of changed the way we do business a lot, and changed what banks have to do or what's needed. So internet, we know about the internet. How much they use the internet might be kind of interesting. I think that they're probably using the framework of the internet for sharing stuff between the various banks. Gosh, we used to have a certain name for that, and I can't remember what it was. We'll have to ask these guys. So, um, errors, yeah, yeah. How often do you have to deal with errors and malfunctions? How often do you have to deal with viruses? Those types of things. Oh, great stuff to ask them. So, computers require some added security. How about environmental controls? Yeah, access control. Who can get into it? Yeah, backups. Um, we used to have to, and I don't know if they still do, but we used to have to take those. We had backup tapes. You know, if you watched old computer things, I know I'm aging myself again, but we had to take those every day and take them off site in the evening. So if the bank burned down overnight, those backup tapes then would be at a different institution. And, you know, you'd have to get a new computer or whatever, but you could restore that information. So, yeah, antivirus are used by particular businesses. So a good question is to ask them about what they use, you know, for security. My guess is it's pretty robust, probably far more than what we would see in our normal PC types of things. So primary software applications. What all do they use? We've kind of gone over that, but great questions to ask. Yeah. E-commerce, yeah. How much of their business, too, you know, we talked about tellers not being as necessary. You know, how much of their business has moved to online? How many people are just logging in and doing their own transfers, where before you used to have to go down to the bank, fill out a little transfer thing, and, you know, give it to a teller who would make that happen. You know, yeah, I mean, boy, has it changed, and finding out how much, I guess people are doing that. Some of those things like ATMs were slow to be adopted, and I don't know if tech is that same way. You might have a lot of old fogies like me that still like to do things a little bit more the old-fashioned way. We talked about marketing when we had Terry Lillivette here from the bank. I don't know these guys how much. Be interesting to ask, I guess, how much of their IT department actually works with the marketing. How much they have to work with Terry in order to do a lot of this marketing stuff. I don't know. You know, if they're just doing the framework, you know, the background stuff for the bank, you know, the accounting, that kind of stuff, or if they in fact get into the marketing, it might be other people that actually do the marketing things. So we'll have to ask them and see what they say. QR codes, I doubt that the bank has a lot to do with QR. Boy, we're seeing a lot more of these. You guys do them with your smartphones where you can take a picture of them and, you know, it'll tell you how much you'd have to pay for that thing at Amazon or whatever. All kind of Greek to me, but I'm always interested in finding out more. So there we go. There's a quick down and dirty look, but believe me, there should be no shortage of questions that you guys come up with for the IT people, and there's no shortage of conversation that they'll have. Some of those topics, well, we could go on for days about. So enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy, you know, either or both of those guys if they make it, when they make it into the class. Thanks.